Good evening and welcome to the Auburn Planning Board hearing of Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. Is anyone in the audience reporting? Okay, at this time, we do pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just as a reminder, audience, staff, unless I've recognized you, please don't just speak out, okay? So on the public hearings, I just want to, right up front, the ZPT Energy Solutions waiver request and the request for site plan approval has been continued to the next meeting, so if anybody's here for those, those aren't going to happen this evening. We have an A&R for 84 to 86 Rochdale Street. Is there anyone here for that? Okay. I'm just going to wait for Adam on that one, see if he's got any input. I think it's stone, yeah. Yeah, I think they do. This is just a realignment, really, of the properties.
Property line,
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of, what you do, and then there's a point here,
No, it's a,
so we're just kind of, instead of it going in. No, that's okay. It's already done. So, we're on the A&R for 8486 Rochdale Street. Did you have any input on that, Adam?
Yes, they're just switching lot lines. Yes, from what I understand, they did a survey and they're off a little bit, so they just want to transfer some property. I didn't see any
Nothing
issues with it.
That's pretty cut. Oh, upside down.
So it's,
That RB, I think it is.
should be, yes.
I think
Yes.
it's RB.
both property owners are in concurrence.
Sorry?
Both property owners are in concurrence.
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes.
And the motion. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve the lot realignment.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Just gonna sign that.
Just need to continue this thing.
They're not here either.
I got a yay. They're hearing.
This one's gonna be continued
Yeah.
as well? Oh, okay.
All right. May 28.
May 28th. Whoops. Sorry, wrong one.
CBA continued their hearing.
The 703 applicant Raymond and Molly Bonneville request for special permit has also been continued. That'll be till May 28th. So if anyone's here for that hearing, that'll happen on May 28th.
There's no line, she just signed.
So
Yeah, just
Sign whatever.
sign wherever.
ATS is here.
Yes.
Thanks. I was gonna say, I don't know how to share a line with the
Thank you. All right, 7:05 PM, ATS Equipment, request for site plan approval under section 8.2.3 and 3.2.7.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow heavy vehicular sales and a repair garage on property located at 487 Washington Street, Auburn, map 57, parcel 21. Good evening,
Good evening,
Mr.
Madam
Broder.
Chair. Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton here representing ATS Equipment. Steve Connolly is with me tonight representing the company. This is the old J.E. Murray site on Route 20, which was repurposed in 2008 when ATS went in there with their existing facility. They do equipment rental, kind of heavy equipment rental. And they've been in that facility now for just about 10 years or a little over 10 years. The site plan that's in front of you is really an amendment. What they're going to do is there are a couple of garages in the rear, and this one in particular that we're talking about, it's about 1,400 square feet. It's not a very pleasant structure. It's not considered to be safe. They don't really store anything in there. People don't really go in there because it's just not a nice structure. So the proposal is to take it down, put up a new structure. We went through a couple of iterations because we did have to go to ZBA. So the plan morphed from an initial proposal to what it's in front of you now. So the existing proposal in front of you is a 3,780 square foot facility. It's that much bigger because it's now going to align with the showroom building, which is in the front. And there's a large overhead door, which you can't see from here, but just behind where the little dot and circle is, or in front of that, to the right of it, if you could see that spot there in the corner, there you go. There's a large overhead door which kind of juts out from the side of the building. So this new structure will come forward from the existing location, hold the same rear spot on the property. I think it's 10 feet offset from the property line, and come forward onto the paved area. And then it will hook into the existing showroom facility. So there will now be some flow between those two buildings there. So it'll be an aesthetically, pleasing, much more pleasing than what's there now. It'll be safer. It'll be much more, have much more utility for the company. Again, no new impervious area because it's over existing paved area. And so that's really what the proposal is in front of you. We've been before the Zoning Board of Appeals, received approval from them. We had submitted the plans and materials to Graves, and I'm sure you have the letter from them, which is a very vanilla, very plain.
Yeah, there wasn't much
It
to
looks
it.
fine. Yeah, it's not a very exciting project, but it's very useful for the company, and they've had a nice run at this location, and this will help with that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do you have any questions?
I had some questions regarding the parking. So are you increasing the amount of parking that you have there?
No.
Is there going to be customers going around that side of the building?
So this doesn't really change, the essence of the business at all. It just makes that space more utilitarian. So right now, they can't pull any machinery inside there, which they'd like to be able to do that, especially in the winter months. And they can't store any of the materials that they have, on site. They're kind of using different locations that they would prefer to just consolidate with this. So this doesn't plan any, major change to the business operations. The site, as you can see on there, the customers are kind of outside the fenced area for the most part, although they come into the side of the building and can view equipment. But the area, I guess I'm talking about the area in the rear there that you see, they're not, the customers aren't back in that area. So no new parking, but
And with the additional size of the building, that doesn't, did you review the parking for the needs, or? I'm just thinking that if you're adding the size of that, I don't know if it's gonna be required, or.
we went through the review with Caleb. I'll have to pull out the zoning table if I can find it. I believe it's on the plan. Yeah, I don't see the parking calculation on the plan, but,
Yeah, I didn't see it, that's why.
yeah.
So they're not going to be hiring any more employees? That's not what the intent of this is? It's
No,
just
it's more
simply
useful,
storage,
right.
put everything in one location?
Right.
Okay. Nick?
No.
Scott?
What was the ZBA for, the side setback?
No, the use is pre-existing considered pre-existing non-conforming, so this was an expansion of that.
Alright.
We did go initially for a different design, which would have brought us a little bit closer to the side yard setback. So we had a side yard setback variance, but we revamped the plan. We don't need that.
Okay.
We're holding the same line as we have now.
Gotcha. That's it for me.
John?
Yeah, I got a few. Is there gonna be a drain in this garage? 'Cause I don't see an oil water separator flagged out, or,
So there is, on site on this facility, back in 2008, there was a pretty extensive system put into place. There's a drain out in the parking lot that will still be, I believe, just outside the front door to this facility. And that has, the oil water separators and the whole nine. It was a pretty extensive system.
so this is a catch basin right here? 'Cause it's not identified on the drawings, I was pretty surprised at that.
Yes, it is.
Is that where the oil water separator is?
Our engineer was supposed to be here tonight, and I would have pointed to him to answer that question, but since I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, I'm not going to pretend to answer the question. I might have the original plan. You maybe can't see it. Your plans are pretty small.
It's pretty small.
Pretty generic, there's no oil water separator on it.
We didn't call out those, those existing site details because nothing was changing in that
Well, you are
regard.
changing because you're gonna put a new drain in from the new building to the oil water separator. That's a huge change
We're connecting the roof drains.
to the parking lot. And they're gonna
Right.
flow into the two catch basins, I assume that are being, well, the one catch basin is being moved 9 feet down the line, according to what I read. Had nothing to do with the one that's not identified on the plan, which I found kind of strange. And your fuel tank's right outside that catch basin, which I assume goes into your recharge system.
I believe that's true.
And that's not shown on the plan.
But again, I think, there are no changes proposed to the system in that sense. I mean, the building's going to come out further into the parking lot. So the question is if there are
I know
any
you're
drains
coming from
within the
Tom,
building.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you're adding a new building of 3,400 square feet, and you're adding roof drains to that go into an existing catch basin recharge system, you are changing the system. It's a huge change. It's 2,000 square feet of roof change. So that's more watershed.
There's a note on the plan, and I will tell you that your plans are small.
Very.
There's a stormwater management note section, which has three items. Well, actually, it has two, I believe. The original one, I'm looking at the original design.
No modifications to existing infiltration system are necessary.
and Graves agreed with that, right?
Okay.
Right. When the system was built, I mean, the layman's answer is when the system was built, it was essentially oversized and could easily handle the new volume. That's my understanding.
Right, but to me, they should have put on the plan that, you know, they're putting up a new building, they're probably gonna put in a good portion of new drain that's going into an existing oil water separator. That's not set on the plans. The stormwater management note is, the interior portion isn't, which surprises me that that went right by without
They depend on
any question at all. Because I don't know what size drain you're putting into your catch basin for your drain inside the building. You could have 5 of them in there, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have a drain proposed inside the building?
I'm sorry, could you say,
This is Steve Conway
Hi, how are you
from
folks?
ATS.
could you repeat the question?
Do you have a drain going inside the building, a floor drain?
We were hoping to have a floor drain inside the building, and that floor drain would go into our oil water separator, which is the, which is this
The big
here.
one.
Correct.
Right, which is.
We don't need a drain inside. If you tell us we, don't need a drain inside there, we're fine, but the idea is that we have an oil water separator here. In regards to the stormwater management and the rainwater, our our system comes down to here. We have another separator down here to recharge.
Right, you got catch basins all over the place.
Correct.
so identified. But my question was, if you're gonna put a new drain in the building, which of course you would, you're gonna have heavy equipment and you're gonna be able to wash down the floor. When that comes out, are you bringing that into the existing pipe that heads out that way? Or are you bringing that all the way out to the existing oil water separator?
We're bringing that to the existing oil water separator directly into it.
Yeah, see, I have no detail on how you connect into the oil water separator. For all I know, you're gonna punch a hole, throw a pipe, and throw some water plug on it, call it a day. It's not watertight. No detail for me to see, so I couldn't, that's why I'd asked the question.
No, you're right. The site plan that was prepared and submitted was very basic.
Is this your
Hey, Norman. This is Norman Hill from Land Planning.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm a little late.
Norman, the question of the design of the stormwater system and how our new building here will interact with that system. If you could address that, including
So, currently, the water runs off the parking lot to a catch basin, and it runs off the roof of the building to a catch basin. So, we're going to be expanding the building in the area where it's already pavement. So, the water runs off the roof just as it would have run off the pavement. So the same amount of water will be going to that catch basin. In that catch basin is a gas oil separator. From there it goes to the infiltration system. So the infiltration system was designed to handle all of that impervious area. So there's no increase in the impervious area on this site.
That wasn't my question,
Oh.
but thank you for the explanation.
Okay. All right.
We had just gotten by that. My question was, they want to put a new drain in the new portion of the building, which I completely understand. But I have no detail on how you're connecting it to the existing oil water separator.
Oh, it would have to be. Yeah, it has to be by law.
Yeah, but I don't know how you're doing the connection. For all I know, like I just said at the top, where you walked in, you're punching a hole on the side, throwing a piece of pipe and throwing a water plug in and calling it a day. That's not a watertight connection to a oil water separator.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it would have to be watertight.
Yes, it would.
Yes.
So it should be a corn seal boot,
Yes.
something else maybe, but I don't have any details saying that.
Would
And I
have
don't
to be
think the
that.
town's gonna have time to send somebody out there to make sure you do it. So I have nothing on a plan that tells me that's what you're gonna do.
Oh, I understand.
You know, I mean, we can say all we want in a meeting, but I know what happens in the field. I've been in the field for 47 years. I know exactly what happens.
Can we add a detail to the plan, Norman?
We
that
can.
would indicate exactly what needs to be done.
We can. Be happy to do that.
And what size pipe it's gonna be,
Yes, sir.
because that does increase the flow into that oil water separator. The flow from the roof, that may not take up any more impervious area, which is fine. But the minute you're adding another 2,000 square feet to a floor, and you wash that floor down, you just increased the flow into that catch basin. Maybe not on a regular basis,
But
but
that-
every time you wash the floor, you do.
Right, but that all ends up going to the sewer system. That all goes to the town sewer system. That doesn't go to the
You just said it
infiltration
went to the
system.
recharge system.
No, it doesn't. No, that was the catch basin I was talking about out of the parking lot that goes to the But that oil gas separator has to go to the town sewer by law.
So if that oil water separator goes to the, so they're taking on basically I&I through your catch basin there.
Not I&I, but
Or
no,
if you're taking rainwater because it's an open grate.
no, it's not gonna take rainwater. You talk about the floor drain inside the building. So the
Right,
floor
that
drain inside the building ends up going to the sewer system.
They told me this was your oil water separator right here.
Who told you
The
that?
one that's near the tank.
The one that's right near the fuel tank. It's a grate, it shows on the plans, but it's not identified.
Yeah, but that's
what
not,
I'm assuming that is.
yeah, but that's not the oil water separator for the floor drains. That's got an oil water separator in case there's any grease dripping on the parking lot. That's a whole different type of a thing.
I know what an oil water separator is, and I know what it does, but I don't see a structure outside identified as your oil water separator.
Oh,
It's not on the plan.
oh, is it? Yeah, on the original drawing. The original drawing of the site. Now we're going back in time several years. So originally, we came around and tied into the sewer here. But during construction, they tied into the sewer over here. So there's currently a manhole over here now that goes to the sewer. So it comes out of these two buildings, goes there into the sewer.
So you
So,
have two pipes meeting in the middle and then go into a sewer manhole? Or an oil water separator
well,
manhole?
well separated, yes, one from this building, one from this building. So the one from this building will still be the same pipe going to that oil water separator, but rather than connecting at the manhole, I would think they'd pick it up here, because coming out of the building now, when they put the addition on, they'll just probably pick it up right there. You know, they might even be inside the building with it. Where's the floor drain in the existing building now? It's probably right about here, probably. So they'll pick up the pipe right inside the building, they won't have to attach to that manhole.
Well, before you got here, that's not what I was told. I was told you're gonna run a new line all the way to the oil water separator.
Oh, I'm sorry I was late, yeah. All right.
So if you're gonna tie into that existing pipe, is the floor drain gonna be exactly in line? Or you could put a bend in the middle of the line to tie into the existing line? You could have an S-curve in there, I don't know.
Well, I can't honestly answer that. I'm not sure that floor drain is in that building. But I know it's connected to that, so they would just pick it up. And I don't know where the floor drain's gonna go in the new building. I haven't, you know, not the architect of
So
the
when you
building.
put the
but-
floor drain in the new building, are you tying it together in the existing pipe coming out of the building with a Y? So now my question would be, is the pipe going from the building, from the existing drain to the oil water separator, big enough to handle two drains? It could be a 4-inch pipe, I have no idea. It's not shown.
Yeah, it was designed as a 12-inch pipe. And then,
I doubt if a floor drain was 12-inch.
no, it's
I think-
not. It's not, but outside it is.
I think the bottom line is we don't have enough information tonight to make a, you know, a determination on this. Mr. Brooks, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, other than what John said.
I think we're going to have to continue this and come back prepared with all of, answer Mr. Reagan's questions and have the site plan for us before the next meeting.
Yeah, so we've got to show, we've got to figure out where the drain pipe is, where the drain is in the existing structure, and figure out where it's going to now. Figure out where the new one's going to go, and where that's going to go, and how.
All right, I'd like to see all that noted on a plan.
And putting in the new floor drain, plumbing code is probably gonna make you put a cast iron pipe outside the building 10 feet. That wipes out the plumbing. And then you tie into that. That would mean you'd have to run a new drain probably all the way to the existing oil water separator. You can't tie it in with a Y. Because I don't know how big the existing pipe main line is going out.
I would hope they could build a new drain right over the existing pipe. That would be my hope. You know?
If they put a new manhole over the existing pipe and tied it in that way, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, that'd be the best
As
way.
long as it's a core and seal boot or some other A-locks or whatever to make it watertight.
Or alternatively, if they don't need or want the drain, it's just discontinued.
That's, now you're in the building code, that's Caleb's call. If the floor drain in there, you're gonna wash down could that handle the flow for another 2,000 square feet? I don't know.
Through the chair, the only concern I would have is when people don't have floor drains, they tend to hose it off out into the parking lot and let it go to the catch basin. So it also would prefer to see the floor drain, just to protect the water.
Yeah, floor drains, best idea. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll come.
Very clear?
Yes.
Great.
Norman, do you need 2
Need
weeks,
a
4
motion to
weeks?
continue,
I'll make that motion.
May 14th?
Change is done this week. And you, right? So we come back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
May 14th works.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you on the 14th.
Thank you.
Waiver requests, AK Upholstery, 203 Southbridge Street, applicant AK Upholstery requests a site plan approval under section 3.2.6.8 the Auburn zoning bylaws to allow an upholstery shop on property located at 203 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass. Map 18, parcel 3. Hi there.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
here for this.
No, it's okay. Introduce yourself. Don't be nervous.
My name is Tanya T. Oliveira. I'm the owner of the AK Upholstery. We've been in business since 1998. And we just moved into this new location, trying to get that working.
Terrific.
Can
Welcome.
you show it down?
Yep.
It's funny, I drive by this building almost every day and I never saw it before.
It's a hidden place.
Yeah. You refusing?
Yep.
So what was the business that was in there before? Do you know?
I really
I
don't know.
think it was WD.
Pardon?
Grosvenor?
Yeah.
And how many people are you going to employ?
Us three.
3 of you?
Yep.
So there's ample parking.
Yeah.
How many parking?
And you're taking the whole building?
No, I'm taking part. It's about 2,600 square feet. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Is there, through the chair, is there any other company that's staying there now besides you, or are you going to be the only people in the building?
No, there is a Century 21 on the other side of the
Century
building.
21. Did you have any input on that? Yeah, there's plenty of parking.
Yeah.
Did you have any input on that, Adam?
No, because they were moving into an already
existing.
existing building, and they seemed, in my opinion, to have a lot of parking, and the site was already built. Thought they would wise for them to come ask for the waivers and not go through the whole process like some normally. It's just kind of a simple, even if that's what the board says.
Sure. Steve, did you have any questions? Nick?
No.
John?
No.
Ronnie?
No.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Motion for the waivers and
A motion for the waivers
I'll
first.
make a motion that we approve 2 waivers, which were...
Yeah. Site
Oh.
topography, lighting, landscape.
Can we do them all?
We can do them all in
And
one,
let's just look.
the waivers,
Just do them all.
the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we request the waivers, approve we,
as listed.
as listed.
Second.
All those in favor? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you
You're all
very
set.
much. Thank you.
Sorry, wait, site plan. Hold on, I jumped the gun here. We need a motion for the site plan approval.
I'll make the motion for the site plan approval.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
You're all set. This time for real.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to
Have a good
Auburn.
night.
I'll send you a
Thank you.
decision, so that you know you're all set.
All right, not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Central One Credit Union minor modification. Not here.
They
Are they here?
They sent us plans last Thursday. Really haven't had a chance to review them. I think they got copies in your packet, but the town engineer has been pretty busy, and her boss has been on vacation. So you may not get to review right away.
Did you have anything on that, Bill? Did you?
I don't know what the changes are. I know they had talked about modification of retaining wall, other items. Yeah, I wouldn't have a chance to look at them at this point.
Okay. Yeah, there's 2 retaining walls, and one of them
I want to change the roof,
to riprap,
slope it to 1 to 1.
and then the other one going from 50 feet long to 24 feet. I think we need to hear from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so we'll move that one along. Laker Street, Ashworth Hill subdivision.
Do we,
Do we need to continue?
We don't have to continue, it's just a discussion item. But thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Could you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Logan Huffman with Eastland Partners, the developer.
Phil Caraccio with Eastland Partners.
I think tonight, if I may, we were asked to come in for an update. And I don't know if there's anything specific where you'd like me to start, or just in general, kind of where we are with things. I know there are a couple issues maybe the board wants to talk about.
Which one should we start with?
I don't know. We've heard about some of the complaints that the neighbors have had in the last couple of months, the blasting and the ledge. I know you talked to Bill about the ledge that was there and the fencing. Just wanted you to come in to talk to the plan board, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and try to make sure everybody is amenable to whatever's going on out there.
Okay.
Just, make sure the communication's open and good, and make sure the neighbors' concerns are addressed if possible, and
Okay.
alleviate the concerns everybody has.
Through the chair, if I could, just to
Sure.
jump in, because I think I emailed Adam initially with some of the concerns. Request them to come in and give us an update. There were initially 2 things specifically that were brought to my attention, and I have discussed with the applicant project. So one was, and maybe they can explain where they stand currently on the project, was the project originally was not approved with a ledge cut section. I believe it varied from a 2 to 1 to a 3 to 1 slope in different areas. And currently, I believe it drops off about 25 feet. And, there's a concern that that's not according to the plan. So at a minimum, that would require a modification to the plan, and the board would have to determine whether it's minor or major modification. But to see if that's something that they were going to pursue. And then also, Adam and I went out there several months ago now with a complaint that they had cleared much more area than what was originally agreed upon. When we had gone out there, we walked probably at least, I'd say, 1,000 feet or so, which cleared about a 20-foot swath through the woods. Some, looks like drilling had occurred, I'm sure, to identify any additional ledge cut areas. So because there was an approved subdivision with an identified clearing plan, and this was not identified in the original plan, to kind of explain to us why that was done and why it was done without communicating with the town. Thank you.
Okay. As Mr. Coyle says, the plan was approved with a 2 to 1 slope on the high side of the road, and rock is, or as everyone pretty much knows, the site's pretty much all rock out there. And I don't know what, if any involvement any of you have had in it, so before you get into the ground, you can't see what's under the ground. And one of the big things that was a big issue with the board in our original approval was the amount of trucks, the amount of material that would be leaving the site. So one of the things we tried to do is, in trying to minimize it, is we looked at it and thought that we know it's rock, and we went in there, and as we did the blasting for the road cut, we did it in such a way that we did what they call a split face method, which basically creates a 1-to-4 slope, which is typical. It's a Mass DOT spec, goes with the design. You've seen it places. It clearly, as I say, was not on the plan, but what we did is we did it to see the quality of the rock and if it would stand and what it would be like when done. We did it. We couldn't come to this board and show you what it would look like until it's done, because clearly we couldn't see through the ground. So we did. That's where we are. It came up that there was, some complaints, I assume, from neighbors or whatever, and, we started talking with Bill and saying, he didn't like it and this and that, and clearly that we'd have to come back to the board. I guess the first thing I would say is we're happy to put, the slope out to what the plan shows. We're in there, it's our business, it's what we do. The material that's coming out of there, we sell all the material. If we have to take another 20, 30,000 yards out of there, we'll sell it all, and that's what we'll do. It'll just take a couple more months, and we can bring it back to the 2-to-1 slope. But I just caution that 2-to-1 slope is too steep to mow. We'll end up with something that is probably going to end up with, rock on the side or something, because it's too steep, really to mow that kind of slope. And we felt that once it gets finished, we clean it up, we fence it, we show the board and all, because clearly we need to get, before we're said and done, we clearly know we don't have any bonding or anything yet. We couldn't start construction on houses on any of the lots, because we have to come back to you and get bond the road and to see where it is. So, that's where it is. As I say, we're happy to take it out, to slope it back as it shows on the plan. But I believe that at the end of the day, to do it with the ledge face, agree upon, a nice fence at the top, that it would be a nice job, and it would be, better looking, going into the future. So we'll go with whatever you feel as a board as far as that goes. The second item, we rented, and I may be mistaken, but I think we may have actually rented it from ATF.
No, we are company out of Spencer.
We rented like a brush hog machine on a Bobcat to clean the undergrowth, so we could move around on our property. It's a 60-acre piece of land. In our view, maybe it's our mistake, but we came in, got approval for a 5-lot subdivision, which basically accounts for roughly 10 acres of the site. The backland, we mowed the site so we could move around, and yes, we did it so that we could move the drill around inside and just do some test drilling to see how deep the ledge is on the rest of the property, so we could have a good idea, of what we've got and what we're working with going forward.
And was that done in the area that the Concom had approved? Was that done within the buffer?
No, nothing.
It's outside of the buffer?
It's outside of the buffer.
There's one small area through the chair that I think is inside the buffer.
It's inside.
I don't know if we have pictures out of them, which I think we'll be able to show.
A number of, if I may, a number of these areas, we've owned the property for 2 years. But I was on the property 10 years ago now, fairly extensive, when the prior owners had approached us. The bulk of the trails that are on the site were there, back then. We did create the new areas, but I've been doing this long enough that, I'm not running out to go, doing things in the buffer zone. It was just one area where there was a trail where we kind of went, down and through the trail. But that was it. We weren't looking to do anything other than, as I say, just make it so you can move around. And
Let me just stop you there, please. The reason you came here in the first place was to get your site plan approval, and so, not sure how it operates in other communities, but in our community, if there are any changes to the approved plan, it's highly recommended that you come here before you start going off and, doing what it is that, you just spoke about. And if the 2-to-1 slope was an issue, that should have been brought up at the time of the site plan approval.
it isn't necessarily an issue. It's just there are other things that are more attractive.
So with that said, again, that could have been proposed to us at the initial site plan approval as well. Steve, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Nick?
No, I think, obviously to the chair, your point is exactly that. If there's going to be changes to the plan after it's made, then, it's recommended that obviously it's brought to beforehand as opposed to, let me just show you what the result is afterwards.
I see.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Forgiveness or permission, right?
And I do understand.
John?
Well, the only thing I have to say is, there's a huge difference between a 4-to-1 slope and a 2-to-1 slope, but I don't have to worry about mowing if it's a rock ledge. What do you gotta worry about a mower for?
No, it's 25 feet in the air.
Yeah. Fence, no fence, kids are gonna climb it, they're gonna jump off, someone's gonna get hurt.
Mr. Brooks?
Well, I think Mr. Huffman said something about in the beginning that they didn't really know what was under the ground or whatever, but then you mentioned that you had a drilling rig and you were bringing it around. That's why you cleared some of the areas, so you didn't drill in the area that you're looking at now?
We didn't. We didn't have the ability or the machinery to do it when we did the original, when we were in for the original approvals. And as I say, shame on us for approaching it this way. We took it thinking that it would see if it worked rather than. I believe that had we been here as we were going through the process and we would have talked about this, I think in fairness, the board would have probably said, yeah, we need to see what it looks like, ultimately. So we are where we are. I'm happy to fix it. As I say, it clearly isn't something that was done where we thought we were going to get away with something, because it's pretty obvious. Out there.
Mr. Brooks?
How much fill of the crushed stone that you're processing would you say that you've taken off so far?
Of 47,000 yards?
How many?
47,000?
7,000 yards.
Because I got something from somebody in a text that said it's, for a while it's like 5 trucks an hour. I imagine it with trailer dumps.
Yep.
And 5 trucks an hour for 8 hours a day anyways, and a couple of hundred a day, a week, loads going out of there. I mean, it's whether or not, I'm not sure how the earth fill removal permit falls into this. That's incidental to when you're developing a site or doing site plan. I'm not sure how it falls in. But we forever had one that said anything in excess of 500 yards needed an earth removal permit. You're already at 50,000 and you probably got a lot more to go.
I think, Bill would know more than me, in your regs, I believe it says that none is needed as long as you have an approved site plan, which is...
And you had
Well,
an approved
we
site
haven't-
plan. You had an approved site plan, and now you've exceeded the approved site plan. So does that open the door for, I mean, this sounds to me, and correct me, Bill, if I'm wrong, that they're operating a quarry and not,
I think to the chair, I guess a couple of questions. One is to Mr. Brooks's comment or point. For years, we'd have a separate permit for the 500 yards, whether it was removal or fill. I remember the Lowe's case had kind of modified that, where the judge came back and said that because it was approved as part of the review process, that we wouldn't require those permits separately. Not to say we can't take a second look at it, but I remember that's when things kind of changed, back when Lowe's was proposed and it went to court. I guess the question I would have is how much longer do we anticipate blasting the ledge, because, and removing the rock out of there? Because obviously you've gone through the area coring holes, and that picture represents about what it looks like for about 1,000 feet, if not longer. So is it all ledge out there? And if you build eventually 250 units, how long are we going to be blasting and crushing rock out there? Just going to go on for 2 years?
Well, it just looks, Bill, when you look at it, it looks like it's a circumvention of the,
Well, and
of
that's-
getting a permit for a quarry
and
or
through the
a
chair,
gravel pit. It's
that's
just
where
an excessive
That's
amount.
where I'm going with it. At some point, and I know we've had a discussion with the building commissioner, whether or not would an additional permit be required, and I think the view was initially that if this is part of the removal of the earth out of the process, in short term, I think that was something that would require a separate permit, as if they were running a business. But if this would have gone for several years, well, that might change that. So I just think it's knowing what's the time frame for all of this.
Yeah, I don't think that when that change was made to the bylaw during the Lowe's situation, that it was meant to look at this excessive type amount. I mean, he said 50,000, there's another probably, how much more would you say?
30,000?
More?
If we take down that
And
slope.
then you get it to where your
And then-
800-foot road supplies your 5 lots?
Exactly.
And then also, I went in there today and took a look, and I saw a brook coming over the top of the ledge. I mean, are you supposed to do anything with rerouting that, or you just, as you go back with the ledge, you just let the water from the brook that flowed all through the land just come over and fall down into the...
Well, that's what we just noticed that happening ourselves, so now we're taking a look at that now with the engineers.
Yeah. Mostly, we think, just from the amount of rain we've had, recently, and there is where there's some stockpile, some of the area that we talked about clearing, there's some material stockpiled back there. I believe that's creating what's diverting it around this direction.
It's coming right off the top of the ledge.
Right.
The wood was cut,
Right.
not at the bottom where the piles of stone are.
Quick question through the chair. The face of your ledge, is that at the toe of the slope currently? Is the toe of the slope of the ledge the same as the toe of the slope if you were sloping it 2-to-1, laying it back?
That's a 1-to-4 banter.
Right.
But the toe of the slope, I'm
Yeah.
kind of...
The bottom of that ledge, is that at the toe of the slope if you have 2-to-1 slope?
It's actually beyond
Beyond?
Yeah,
Any idea how far beyond?
about 7 feet.
yeah, 5 to 7
Okay,
feet.
all right. Okay. So some of that would potentially be a fill section if you overblasted.
Yes.
Cut,
Yes.
Yes.
flatten it back, lay it back, and then cut some of the ledge, and then fill some of the toe.
Yep.
As far as the timing goes, all our goal is, and all we have a plan for now is to, as you say, is to build the 800-foot road. That's it. The exploration that we did out back, I am happy to say there's a lot more dirt once you get up kind of to the top of that hill and start headed back. It gets much, much deeper though. So to answer it, there would be, I can't quantify exactly how much, ledge there would be for any remaining development. I mean, we don't know yet, because we haven't done any engineering, really to that point where there's been any quantities. Plus, we haven't come forward with anything to try and seek any, formal approvals or anything. So, if we're left to, I'm sorry,
Or modifications.
it wouldn't be part of this plan. But if, as you say, if you want us to take the slope, I would say right now, worst case, we're talking another 3 months,
Yes.
probably, and that would be it.
3 months of drilling, or part of your ongoing project, or 3 months to cut it at the slope that?
The additional blasting that would be required would probably be another 3 weeks, which probably would happen in a couple weeks. And then to have, pretty much all the material removed would be, 3 months after that. And then we should have the whole road, that whole area, cut to subgrade to where we would, our plan is to start putting in utilities and, and actually building the actual road itself.
Can you, what was it, Bill, is it 2 to 1 or 3 to 1?
2 to 1.
I think it's 2 to 1, but I thought it varied. If you look at the slope, it varied from, I think, 2 to 1, and then it lays down to 3 to 1 in some areas. But you can, Mass DOT standard specifications do allow 2 to 1 loam and seed. So, what I would say, if it's ledge though, certainly you're gonna wanna overblast it. You're not gonna wanna put 6 inches of loam on top of ledge, it's just gonna wash away. They should probably have their engineer look at how deep they should go. I'm thinking at least 2 feet, but I would wanna hear from their engineer and have their engineer propose something.
Because I'm just wondering if, on everybody's behalf, the neighborhood and everybody's, would rather see you use some of the fill that you already have created there, and to whatever its size that is, or whatever it needs, and use that to bank and create your slope instead of blasting for another excessive. You can't use
I
that.
wish it could, because the edge of the road's pretty close to where that bottom is, so you can't achieve from the 25-foot top. You'd be covering your whole road.
Oh, so you have to go back.
Yeah, exactly.
To my knowledge, all the blasting we've done, everything's by the book. We requested for anybody within any of the requirements to do pre-blast surveys. I can't honestly tell you myself if they were done. If memory serves, I think there were a few people that actually refused it. There's been no issues. I would suggest if there's any true and honest concerns about blasting that you speak to the fire department, because a member of the Auburn Fire Department, and I think a few times, sometimes people from the Oxford Fire Department were there every day. So there's always somebody been on site. There's seismograph records and all of that. If there's any, like real concerns about damage or anything like that, from blasting.
Well, it looks like we have an awful lot of neighbors here, so we're going to let them speak to that. But before we do, Bill, you've been in touch with the fire department. Everything has been.
They haven't passed along any complaints relative to blasting to me. Any of the calls are going directly to them. So if they're getting a lot of calls or complaints relative to blasting, I'm not aware of it, but they're not advising me one way or the other.
Okay. Any comment from the public?
Hi.
Hi, please stand up and say your name.
My name is Mary Quintana, and I live at 3 Queens Drive, so I live right on the top. I'm a newbie, so I just owned the house, so I wasn't aware of all this blasting or any notice. I have little children. I have a daughter with special needs who is very sensitive to loud. Yeah. So there's a lot of conflict. So one day I was at home alone with my 4-year-old, and a blast came in. My house totally shook, like literally shook. I took my child, ran out of the house, look around to see if I thought a tree fell on my house. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, like where's everybody? Like what happened? Mm-hmm. I still to this day I didn't know until one of my neighbors came up to me. He's like, yeah, they're blasting. So I had no idea, no notice, no nothing, who to call, what to say. I mean, nothing.
What is the notification process for the?
I believe there's a number right on site to contact the
Yeah,
fire department. There's a phone number there too.
We have our phone number on site.
Your phone number.
Our phone number's on site on board if anybody has any questions.
But they should contact the Auburn Fire Department relative to this.
Pardon?
Should be a seismograph right outside the house within 20 feet. To measure the velocity, it has to be under 1.5 feet per second.
Right, closest structure, I believe, is where they usually set
Two
them.
of them.
Two of them.
So there's like no written notification that goes to let them know that there will be blasting in the area, or no?
I'm nothing I'm aware of.
Per Mass state regs, it's, my understanding is that it's within a distance of 250 feet is what
Is when you have to notify with,
is what how
in writing?
the state regs are, or notify for people to do pre-blast surveys and that kind of thing if they want that done.
Yes?
I'm Maria Coker. I live at 12 Blake Street, Auburn, Mass. And on their behalf, I just want to say that they have a fireman and a blasting person come over and measure our house. But she's getting the same effect. And to me, they should do her house, whether it's 250 feet or not, because it's on that ledge. You know how ledge overlaps all the way down? They should be doing all the houses. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I had spoken to Adam, and I spoke to the Board of Health. My father's 87 years old, and you know, when they first started, you know, when we came from meetings before, it was told that they have to blast, they have to break up the rock, they have to take it out of there. I understand that, and they were doing it. Now they're processing it very finely, and call it what you want, building or quarrying. To me, it's quarrying because they're going beyond what they need to do. And when I was asked who gave permission, they said all of you gave permission. Well, my dad's 87, she has a baby, and that stuff is blowing over like really bad. Like this is just 1 hour on a windshield wiper. And that's thick too. On a truck that sits there. Now, why can't they take it somewhere else and process? He's got plenty of money. Why can't they take it off-site and process it elsewhere?
Thank you. Bill?
Dust control.
Dust control?
The first day that they had rock crushers on site, they had no water on site. I went there at I think around 3:15, so when they got the call, and I called Phil directly and told them at this point, because they had no water, to shut it down. And it was around 3:30. I waited a little bit. I know Phil was trying to get in touch with the owner. I finally just drove up there and pulled in front of the loader and just said, "It's shut down. No, you're done for the day." And said, "Until you get water, you can't continue." So they did bring in water the next day. They had water attached to the rock crusher, so it was watering the plant itself was watering the material as it came out. And I said, I also want a water truck here to water the lot area as well. And then in the piles that, especially on a windy day or a hot day, to water those as well. After they did that, it was much better. I can say I haven't gotten a lot of calls. This past few weeks it's been raining so much. I think my concern is that when the summer gets here and it's dry and you know, hot air and wind, that's when it's going to get bad.
And if this is going to continue for 3 more months, then it's going to get hotter and drier and...
Well, and that's the concern too. Is it's a, you know, I brought up the issue, the fact that right now it's a ledge cut section. That, you know, my concern is that whether that poses a hazard long term. If it stays that way, it's going to be there for forever, quite frankly. And I recognize the additional blasting could add 3 weeks or more, 3 weeks more blasting. But I think it's something certainly worth discussing. But you know, whether or not do you not blast the next 3 weeks, or do you just continue and do it the right way and have the slope there so that, you know, 50 years from now we're not dealing with a kid falling off that ledge area. But certainly something open for discussion.
So, you know, it brings to my question the part of you processing this to where it's real saleable and marketable for you takes an additional long period of time. And this is what I think we need to look at with the earth removal permit. Is it to just allow them, I would say, to get it off the site to facilitate whatever they were going to build there in a road? Or is it to let them process it to where they can market it? I do not believe that was the intent of the bylaw of the town. Or the court ruling with Lowell's.
Through the chair, I just want to point out again, this would be things that all have been prevented had we been notified of modifying. This is the reason why you notify them of changes to the plan, not just the, you know, we'll see what happens and show them the finished product type of thing, so that the neighbors and everything are impacted too in certain circumstances like this, especially. So
Definitely. I think we should probably look into that a little bit further and find out
Yeah, through the chair, that's a very good point, because if it was not determined it was wedged from the beginning, and it was determined after the fact when they started digging, and decided they were gonna start blasting at a 1 to 4 slope, if they're going back to the board, for a modification to the plan, you could move forward differently.
I just wanted to say, when I first talked to him, there was one machine going, now there's 2. I understand they want to get it done really quick, but the wind was blowing on Friday. I'm sorry I didn't have your number, and I kept calling and calling, and I knew we were coming to a meeting, but the wind was blowing really bad, and the stuff is fine. You can't even see it, but you can't even breathe in it. It's so bad.
I'm sure it does.
Anyone else from the public? Your name,
Brian
please?
McDermott from Tick Hill Road. My main concern is when they first started the plan, they had a nice picture of a road going up to the hill and a cul-de-sac. And they pretty much just plowed through the woods like they're building 300 homes.
Correct.
And the pool of water at the top's always been there. It fills up with water in the spring, and then it slowly drains. And as far as I know, that's my definition of a vernal pool, which is something you're not supposed to build on or around. So I just don't think they followed the plan, and it is a gravel pit, not a housing project.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things, Adam, we want to note that we should go a little bit into the quarry operation that's currently going on and the vernal pool that we just mentioned, Concom. Is anybody else that wanted to?
You just want to talk here, before I go? Mark Lindblom, 1 Eames Drive, Auburn. Same thing, I don't want to just beat the dead horse. It's a quarry. I mean, it just goes on. It's all people hear. I live on 1 Eames Drive, the top of the hill. That's all you hear. From when your trucks stage at 6:30 in the morning, yes, they don't start work till 8. All the triaxles are showing up at 6:30 in the morning. We hear them all banging around. We hear them do their empty their buckets or whatever. That happens almost every single day. We hear it, that happens. On average, you're running, like on a Saturday, this past Saturday, you're running 4 hours out, 4 truckloads out per hour. That's 16 truckloads on a Saturday of a triaxle. On a current weekday, currently, what you've been running is five triaxles out an hour. I believe it was more a few weeks ago. That's 40 truckloads a day. If a triaxle holds 17 yards, that's 3,672 yards a week getting hauled out of a four-house subdivision plus 1 house. Also, again, the grade of I'm trying to figure out the purpose of what the Conservation Commission's initial part was, because if you go there again, you see the pretty plans. It's all white. There's nothing there. There's not a single tree. What was the purpose of having discussions of trees over a certain size, of having specific flora that's in there, in the wetlands, all that stuff? There's nothing left. It's clear cut. I mean, you make your boundaries. You go 4 feet off of this guy's property. You're leaving about 3 feet from where your property line is now to where the finish line is. I mean, the whole thing's gone. Same thing. Mandel's property, you're right behind theirs. December 26th, when it's Christmas time, no one's open. We wake up to have excavators going right along our property line. Your brush, if your brush includes 10, 8, 12-inch trees that are ground down, all the mountain laurel that's ground down, all the trees that are pushed over, and I'm not just making stuff up. That's what these pictures are. I don't know. I apologize. We were out there. We thought we were later on, or we would have been here sooner. So, my bad. We were trying to keep quiet. Let's see. The other thing is, what's the purpose of a staging area with all the property that's wiped out, that's gone, that's level? Why do you have to come right behind the 3 houses and make, I'm going to estimate, 3-acre staging area right behind everyone's property when you have the whole lower lot's gone? That's just wiped out, no slope, just a big open pit. The road all up, there's not a single tree. You have the one big rock mound that's in the far left-hand corner. Other than that, it's clear cut. There's nothing there, no top, I know you have your topsoil staged. But what's the purpose, why do you guys have to come from where the end of your cul-de-sac is to where the staging area is? That has to be what, 1,000 feet? That's about 1,000 feet. There is a long span between where your houses are being built and a staging area that's 300 feet off the back, 200 feet or so off of the front of my house and off of the side of their house and off of the side of your grandmother's house.
Did you want to answer that? Do you have a reason why you staged it where you staged it?
You have to start somewhere.
Okay.
You can't start in the back and moving all around.
What we staged there is the topsoil to keep it on site so that it can be used back on site.
By law?
And one thing, with all due respect, it's our property. Now, and I don't know if this board is real receptive to this, but
It's your property.
I have
but
the
you
same-
also have, pardon me, it's your property, but you also should take into consideration your neighbors while you're doing this.
we do every day, every single day. And they're talking about these things. Number one, I mean, where in the world is the fairness? All of these people are on our property. They're trespassing on our property, but that's okay. And it is okay, people. We don't mind. But you are all trespassing on our property. What I'm doing at the end of the day is I'm just trying to develop my property within the rules. The ledge and all this
No,
stuff.
it's not within the rules.
We're
There's no need to go to the planning board if
Yeah.
you don't follow the plan.
Right, that's
Wendy,
true.
time out.
John?
Mind?
No, go for it,
Brush
John.
hog. You went further than you want. You know why you went further than you want? Because you rented it for a certain amount of time. You got the most use out of it. That's why you went further than you were supposed to. You made the most use out of your rental. You can stand right here and look me in the eye and deny it all you want, but that's not the truth, because I know how it works.
No, sir. Actually, no, we didn't do it. It wasn't about the time. We wanted to get a bunch of brush hogging done, just like anybody would mow their lawn. Here.
In the area you're going to work, and in the area where you're going to stage your material, like your loam or whatever rock you're crushing for your use. And now you said you got 3 months more of blast, and you neglected to include all the utilities you have to put in. That's another 3 months of blasting.
No, it's all done at once. Everything is
You're
all,
blasting all your trenches all at once.
everything's all done at once.
So
Yes.
you're over blasting everything for your trenches. So your sewer, water, and drainer,
Every one of them.
5 feet apart, and you've blasted it all at
Depends
once.
on the pattern that they did, but all the
And
depths are done.
Point that she said she heard a loud blast. If she's hearing a loud blast, you're not blasting properly. You hear a muffled sound if you've covered it properly with rubber mats. You can argue with me all you want. but
I'm
you're gonna
not
lose.
arguing with you. I don't know how much blasting you've done in your career, and I'm
Probably
not
more
gonna
than you
argue
have.
that. Well, I doubt that, sir.
All right, we're not going to get into a,
Yeah.
pissing contest here. A couple of things. If there's any modifications that need to be made, you come here first before the work gets done, okay? And we're probably going to have to look at a modification for what they've already done, correct?
I think so.
Also, we're going to confer with town council in regards to the quarry operation that's going on right now.
That's good.
And we'd also like to be in touch with the Conservation Commission. Anything else, guys?
Is there any more public comment?
Anybody else, public comment? Mr. Lindblom?
Again, thank you. Another thing on the Albert Street, the people there, I know they're not here today, they have kid birthday party. So, what, 18 months ago, close to 2 years ago, when the trees were taken down on Albert Street, when the bushes and shrubs were taken out of Albert Street,
My apologies.
it's all been graded back out, and now it's just nothing but, you have wattles, you have stakes, gravel. People would like their lawns back. I know, I understand you still have to get your other sidewalk and stuff like that, but for all of last year, all of this year, people still have a 4.5 foot, 5 foot blockage on their front of their yard, where the trees are gone, the shrubs are gone, everything's gone. You just have wattles and stakes. even if it's gonna be done later on, I'm sure they would like to have something that resembles a front yard back on that corner of Albert Street.
What's the plan?
The plan is we wish we could do something faster. It's all National Grid. They have to move the telephone poles back. That's what we've been waiting on. If somebody's got a magic wand and can get them out there faster, we would love that.
Good luck with that.
Absolutely love that.
Well, just keep us up to date on that, would you please, so that we can,
What I know, and we updated today, our understanding is the work order has been issued finally. And I asked my people today, so what does that mean, a couple weeks? He said, well, I wouldn't say a couple weeks, but we're certain the work order's been issued. Yeah, I assure you, we would have finished the curbing, we would have finished the paving and the sidewalks and all. It's just, got to get the poles moved. And that's it, Madam Chairman, as far as that goes.
so we'll bring them back for the modification to the site plan?
So, just to the chair for clarification, are they looking for a modification for the 1 to 4 ledge, to leave the ledge? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I think, do we want to keep it to the 2 to 1?
1 to 2.
Well, I
1 to 2.
agree with you. If they want to go with a 1 to 4 slope, they need to come back for a modification. I just wanted to, I didn't know.
Well, that's an option that wasn't original on the plan.
Right.
The plan was for a 2 to 1.
Right.
And you're asking for us to go as a modification to 1 to 4.
To consider.
So first, we
yes.
have to consider that,
Right.
and after that, if not, we go back to the 2 to 1 and see how they're gonna do it.
And again, I do apologize.
Mr. Lindblom?
Same thing, Parliament. So we were out there, again, we were trying not to be disruptive on this side, so we didn't catch the whole part on the whole 2 to 1 ratio part. So again, we know there's a 25, 30-foot sheer cliff. Was the comment that it has to go back further because of, it wasn't?
It does, or it will cover the road. If they don't go back further, and then when they rebuild that slope, it will end up covering the road.
Okay. And there's no other room and anything else there that you guys can do to compensate?
Put a fence
So
on top of a 25-foot wall.
That's what's there now, big ugly silver fence.
Mm.
So, all right, again, I know we're just gonna be frustrated to have all that more junk going on for a miscalculation.
Can I just ask a question? What type
Sure.
of rock is it? Is it shale, granite?
It's more of a rotten granite. It's actually blasted really well. And that part of it's gone, pretty well.
On that particular slope, you couldn't rip it?
Oh, no.
Instead of blasting it?
Not this. It would take
And
blasting.
it's not that rotted.
Yes?
Maria Coker, 12 Lake Street. Okay, my question is, I said my piece. Now I wanted to know what you guys are going to do about it. But because I don't understand modification and all that. And we don't trespass on his land, but it's trespassing on our airspace because my dad cannot go out of his house. He cannot open his windows. But he could when they did break the rock and put it in the trucks and took it out like they were before. And they had a processing machine that was processing it that did not bring anything over there, which they're running now with that fine one. It's the fine one we don't want. And they do water it, but you take a rock and smash it with a hammer, there's still dust inside. That's all I want to say.
What we're doing is we're going to be conferring with town council to discuss this further, and we'll keep you posted. What's
Okay.
next? Next steps?
I will get in touch with council. If you'll consider the modification, we need to see something, some plan to show the modification.
Mhm.
Then we can consider our options on the slope.
Okay.
And I'll look into the vernal pool, see what the situation is
Yeah.
with that.
Yep, get Concom involved. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Package Drive Farm subdivision waiver on the granite curbing. Is there anyone here for that? Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I spoke to the developer at that site on the waive the granite curbing, just paved curbing. They haven't sent me anything yet, so I don't have anything to waive.
Regardless, it's already gonna be denied.
Yeah, right.
He wants to take out the business
way.
coming in off of Curtis Street.
Yeah.
And the minute you do that, and put the, whether you put Cape Cod berm in or standard berm in, you're gonna get wiped out by
We're
the
gonna
plow.
be double.
So then it's gonna fall on the town 10 years from now to go repair it.
Right,
You submitted granite curving, we're gonna put granite curving into my book.
I agree. Briarcliff Estates subdivision, discussion. We're the only three left.
Yeah,
Gotta be
that's
you
us.
guys. Come on up to the table and let's talk.
Yeah, I'll grab it.
All right. That was fascinating. So my name is Kevin O'Brien. I live at 25 Briarcliff Drive in Auburn. I came here in 2014. I moved to the Bryn Mawr Estates in 2012. I did a presentation last time. I guess I'm supposed to submit stuff.
Well, this is for discussion. We'll take those and we'll get an opportunity to look at those. But if you want to give us the Reader's Digest condensed version of what's happening, that'd be great. We're pretty aware of the issues.
So,
yeah.
basically, we have properties that slope down. The first set of properties here slope down to each other. This property happens to be raised, so this property, which is my property, is the lowest on the hill coming down. And then there's a fall off or cliff.
Kevin, can you just talk up a little bit?
Yes, certainly. So these properties here are down a cliff. And I know...
Those the ones on Amherst or Bright? Okay,
yep.
thank you.
And when I moved into the neighborhood, I knew nothing about building. I still know very little, but I have watched an entire development go up in the 7 years that I've been there. So it took me a couple years to figure out what was going on with all the water that would drain off, the silt that would drain off. And in 2014, you know, I was watching Gallo dig these trenches out, 2 properties up from mine, and they would dry out and then they would fill up about 4 feet deep of water. And I started to wonder, you know, what are they going to do with the water, because eventually it's going to come down to my property. And that's when I came to the board and asked about, so it happens on Briarcliff, it also happens down the cliff on Amherst, or did. Both properties now have homes on them. And when I was here last time, I believe the board called Gallo in to talk about that and some other issues that had arisen from the water drain off in the neighborhood. In 2016, or I'm sorry, I think this is probably most illustrative. So the lagoons, as we called them, were up here, 2 properties up from mine. This is a next door neighbor, and after Gallo came here, you know, I guess it was explained to me that what the plan was for the neighborhood was that each property would have a swale on it, and the properties that have the large drop off, instead of the water going down, would swale to the front of the yard, and the water would go down the driveways and into the water mitigation system. I don't know what you call what
Catch basin.
The catch basin.
Catch basin. And I don't know what the pipe is that runs on easements across 3 of the properties that go out back to the, can you bring up the property?
What is that, Bill? What is that?
There's a drainage trunk line.
Trunk line?
So, I expected that to happen. In 2015, next door to me, they leveled off their swale so that the water wouldn't accumulate there, and it just came down into my property. In 2016, Caleb and Bill came out to my property. At the time, neither Jason or Sean, who have moved into the two lower properties.
On Amherst?
Yes, yes.
Neither of those properties were built, and I remember standing at the edge of my property looking down and saying, eventually all the water's going to end up down there, whoever the poor people are that end up purchasing those properties. I know that Gallo won't tell them that.
Of course not.
So, in 2016, after that meeting, the storyline started to be developed by Gallo that once the lawns grow in, they'll absorb the water, and
The lawns planted on the gravel,
Yes, the clay and gravel.
clay and gravel and discarded pea stone and
Yes.
anything else that was laying there.
Cups and whatever else they want to throw in there.
you know, outside of, and for me on my property, I experienced it both in the front of my house with water runoff that is eroding my front yard, and then in the back of my yard, the water is now accumulating, so it's pretty sloppy, slushy most of the season. And I don't know if you can bring up any of the videos that these guys have forwarded showing.
That were on the email?
Yeah.
Can you bring them up so we can see them?
Yeah, it basically creates a, I just, moved into the house. I had a fence put in around the property. We were just getting ready, to be finished with it. We had that huge rainstorm last year that put 3 inches of rain in an hour. And basically created a gorge right down the side of my hill into my yard. And now I have, in some places, the channel is almost a foot deep, from the runoff. And it's affected his yard because it goes into my yard. My yard can't handle all of that water, and it all flows into his yard. And we just had, I put in extensive drainage in my yard because of what we saw afterwards. So, I have 3 different drains in my yard used to try and dispel some of the water that comes in.
Yeah.
And it's not nearly enough to handle all that comes down there.
What'd you put in for drainage?
They ended up, they're doing it as standard in all the yards.
Except for mine.
They basically dig a trench.
Gallo's doing it?
Gallo did
So
it
he
one
did
part
it
of it.
on every property
Yeah.
on Amherst, but for mine, which is the last one. I put it in last summer myself at my own cost.
What exactly did he do for the drainage? in your
Basically, we had a drain. I have a drain coming off my neighbor's yard.
Pipe?
Here it
The
is.
pipe that they had put behind. That that's the newest one, but I wish I could show you the one from last year. It's worse than this, and you can see he has that manhole cover down here, and it just fills up my yard. I had to crack it open to get some of this water out, and I was already open this much to try and let some of the water out, and it filled it up even with it being cracked open. So I had to go back out there and basically pry it open more
you'll see 'em in a
and
second.
stick a bigger rock underneath it to try and,
And this is about 7 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, and
Is that manhole on the drain line or on a sewer line?
no, it's on the drain line. It goes to their retention pond.
So why didn't you put a catch basin?
If I could
Sure.
jump into the chair. I did talk to Jason, who was out there a couple times when we went out. I think when Adam and I went out again last Friday. And then Stephen Gallo, and a couple of his workers out there. The main concern that I was looking at, because the video demonstrated that waterfall coming off the back of, is it number 25, Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah, he's 25.
I don't know if we can you go to the aerial on this, Adam, on GIS? The back of, well, we can't even probably look at the map that he's showing in his handout. On sheet 7, you can see, trying to get oriented, the white lot, is that the, oh, there you are.
This is
Okay.
25 Briar Cliff.
Okay.
No, that's
Sorry,
Amherst.
That's Amherst right there.
shoot out a
Go
little
down a little
more.
bit more, there you go.
Yep, that's his house right there.
here.
Okay, can you pan over a little more, Adam?
And that's me and,
Okay.
and Sean right, yeah.
Right there, that's 25?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
25.
It was
and
done
then
into
this is,
4. and that's-
Jason.
Yeah.
So what it looked like, excuse me, what it looked like to me, a lot of these properties are all draining
Directly.
this way, and this particular house lot is graded higher. You can see that it's built up. So there's a natural, not natural, they graded it all to discharge right here. Okay, and there happens to be a town drainage easement that eventually, if and when the road is accepted, we would accept that easement along with it. So my concern was, concern for what they're going through, but part of my concern with that is where it's now private property, we're a little bit limited to what control we now have since they've already purchased the property. But because it is over an easement, when I talked to Gallo, I said, you know, is that, will degrade the drainage easement, it could wash out everything down to my pipe. So I need to put in a drainage structure in the back of that property. So he, during the meeting, was agreeable to put in drainage back in this corner where this water's going to, and then it would have to get piped down to, is it
Where are they?
19? Jason, what's your address?
4,
Oh, I'm sorry,
Amherst.
4 Amherst, 4 Amherst. It'll get piped down to here where there is a house now. There are all houses here now. The only ones I think vacant is this one.
Top corner.
Yeah,
back lot.
way in the
So-
back lot.
Oh, is that top lot in the corner?
Is the last
That's
one.
the last
Yeah, the
remaining
last
lot.
gray
house to the
right of it?
That's gonna be another
He's gonna build on it, yeah.
So all these temporary detention ponds that he had constructed, there's all houses out here now. So all that water's going somewhere, right? So, and I can tell you back, I think it was last August, that rain came down so hard, coming off this hill, it was incredible. I mean, quite honestly, there's no kind of drainage that could handle that flow. So what I did say, that even with the drainage being installed, it's not gonna guarantee you won't get runoff. What I did ask them to do is, if they put in a catch basin, to put in a dome-shaped frame, so that, a grate, so that it doesn't get plugged with leaves. It's less likely to plug up because it's dome-shaped. I asked them to provide me with a drawing from your engineer. I'm just making a suggestion, what I think would potentially work, but I want something for a paper trail from them proposing a solution. So they indicated they would do the work. Mr. Gallo left. We had another drainage issue up above we were looking at. So I ended up talking to his workers and telling them I need a plan as well. And I also sent an email advising him that not just a solution, he agreed to do the work, but in addition to that, I want a plan so we have a record of it. Plus technically it'd probably be a minor modification as well, so.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. O'Brien. All of the water that you're now experiencing on the side and the front of your property from these pictures, I see, are those your front stairs that are
Yeah, the stairs
being wiped out and
have
pulled
sunk
away
about
from the house?
8 inches into the ground.
Was that an issue before that house was built next door to you and the way they graded it, or did that happen after that grading was done?
So the slides 3 and 4 are showing the lagoons here and here. This property had been built and the water was accumulating on this corner. They did put some kind of pipe in here that comes out.
Which drains it actually almost right into my yard too.
So there's a pipe that's in this ledge that's going up to this property, and the water just pours down here. But in 2015, they took the swale off there, so the water just
runs down
straight down into here. And I'm not a particular fan of putting a catch basin in here because it doesn't solve any of the problem. And this accumulates most of the water. The excess water would go into there, but again, it was explained to me in 2014 and 16 that the water that was 4 feet deep here was going to be brought out to the street and down into the catch basin, and that the water that was in this yard would go out to the street. The problem here is this driveway was constructed during a work stoppage. You guys, or the town
Oh,
planner
right,
at
I
the
remember
time
that, yeah. Caleb
asked
said
them
to
to
stop, and he went back the next day and it was paved.
Right.
After he had been told not to do it.
So they they put a lip on the driveway so the water would go down, but the lip is disintegrated, so the water goes halfway down the driveway and then spills off
Into
the
your
property.
yard?
Correct.
So, Bill, if they put that pipe in and that drain, how is that going to remedy this other issue with the water that's coming off from that property that's just above Mr. O'Brien's property? Well,
I
that's-
haven't seen that drain that he's referring to. I'm not sure if that's a gutter drain or a foundation drain or what that might be. Because you, a lot of the
There's no drains, it's just the volume of water that comes down.
The way it runs off.
Right.
The difficult part for me is that all these properties have been sold, people live in all these houses now. Typically, I get, as town engineer, I inspect the roadway work, but don't get involved with
the grading?
the grading of the house. I think going forward with, under our new subdivision, our stormwater regulations, I think we should be looking at requiring an engineered plan stamped by a professional engineer for any house development. Because
Absolutely.
what happens is, we have a set of plans for the subdivision. Doesn't show a specific grading for each house. They pull a building permit, which typically they'll show a footprint of a house and property lines and no grading. And the contractor is basically grading it as he feels as though it was appropriate. I think, unfortunately, you really should have an engineer designing every house and controlling the runoff so that we know what's gonna happen. Now that all these houses have been sold, people live in them, I felt comfortable saying we need some drainage work completed here because it's within the easement area and it literally could wash out the entire area and that would be owned by the town.
Is that the only easement area the town has at that,
There's some in the back, but I haven't heard of any.
some on the other
No,
side?
yeah, way-
And they're
I'm
not
sorry,
having
way
a
down at
problem on the
bottom.
other side,
Well,
it's just,
there could be problems down there too. I've had to go down there over the past several years, they haven't cleaned that ditch out. There is a ditch that runs along the back there.
so once we put in that, or he put in that, and then eventually the town owns it, and then the town's responsible for it.
Unfortunately, at that point, we're gonna be responsible.
So the bond that we have currently, is that
That's sufficient currently.
sufficient currently?
And just, we're not comfortable doing that. I appreciate the thought of it,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna solve any of our problems. It might plug the hole, but it's just, the water's all gonna stay in our yard. And,
Well, it would drain your backyard.
If I might, where all the water comes, it's sort of where it doesn't run down the hill, it sort of settles into the hill. So what we get out of the base of our hills is it just pours water. As I said, I put in a drain last summer.
Settles in the-
Before I put that drain in, it would be all summer long, and at the base of my hill, you would walk on it, it would be like walking on a moon.
Yeah, mush.
Right.
Is it coming out of the bottom of the storm?
It's coming out of the hill itself.
Through the
the
chair.
middle and
Draining?
Excuse me, 1 minute.
Through the chair, this hill is all compact glacial till. It's probably a drumlin, which is a very poorly draining soil. You could dig a hole there now and probably hit water at 18 inches. I don't think that's something that you're going to be able to rectify. You're on a hill, and when you have slopes that drop off 20, 30 feet, the bottom of that slope, water's gonna bleed through. You could put curtain drains and swales at the bottom of it to try to divert it, but each house would have to do that separately and then control where the water's going to go. I mean,
So you'd have to basically get all your neighbors to build up the edges of their driveways, number one, to make sure whatever water was coming that way would go out to the street where it should be going. And then have somebody come in and grade your backyards. This is,
I think going at this point where all the houses are built except for one at the very top of the hill, you have to go in there now and regrade the entire subdivision to control the runoff. I think it's more looking at where are the problem areas and how do we fix those now.
isolate those.
Right.
And
Well, the problem is everything's running down from the top of the hill down to, his yard basically is the catch basin right now. And mine is the spout that shoots everything out.
So my drain is all full of mud now because it's all taken the hill with it and filled into my drain.
Well, recently on the last storm, the muddy picture you saw was the latest one. I have a much better video of when it first happened. I mean, it's a torrent of water. And
I think I saw that
the
video.
the problem is that now it goes into the drain, and the easement goes underneath the road, goes into our neighbor's yard across the street from my house. He's got another manhole cover that sits there, and basically it fills up with so much water. I don't know how much silt is now in that system going down to the retention pond, but his sewer cap floats and water comes out of it.
So there is a requirement that they keep those catch basins clean, correct?
They don't have
Catch
any.
basins need to be cleaned. Before we will accept the road, I want all the lines cambered, because there has been a lot
Oh,
of
you're gonna
silt
find a lot.
in that drainage area and that subdivision. Even before Gallo took it over, it was even worse. So they're gonna have to camber the lines, and if they're filled up with silt, they're gonna have to clean them.
So it's really a two-pronged approach here. We identify the areas where we think improvements can be made.
Right.
And then it sounds like there's a civil lawsuit
I
with
think
all of,
Because, I mean, I put over $10,000 over what I initially spent to have, like, you know, to have the yard done, have the fence put in.
Yeah.
And I put in $6,000 worth of arborvitaes across the top, and now 4 of them are collapsing. The earth has dropped this much, right at that spot. And I have trees collapsing in. And now they're gonna say, we'll just put a drain in there. But what do they do about the money, extra money I had to put in? I had to, you know, I had a little stone wall, I had to build up more to try and catch everything before it
Yeah.
flowed out into the street, flowed out in his yard.
Yep.
And now we have parts of the hill where water's just springing out of the side of the hill. You know, you go down about 10 feet from my fence line, and the most recent storm, I mean, it's literally just coming out of
Shooting
the
right
hill
into my
and
yard.
shooting into his yard, which is
I
now,
would recommend looking at all 3 videos. The first one was when the house was
Yeah,
being
you've got
built before
the,
it took occupancy.
you've got the links here, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
The second one is the most, the hardest to watch. You know, I understand, I've heard a few times from a few different people, well, we had a lot of rain. But I've been documenting this since 2014, and there's a lot of rain every year. So I don't think we magically caught video at the right time. And I think, not to be adversarial in any way, but when I look up here, I see a hill that's very different than 2014, when, you know, none of these houses were built. This wasn't built, that wasn't built, that wasn't, 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 and that wasn't, and that wasn't. And none of these properties were owned individually, so.
It hasn't been addressed.
Correct.
I feel like I'd like to know more about in 2014, when I did identify that water was all going to end up down here. Well, what was addressed with Gallo, and what?
I want to know what their thoughts were when they basically made a bowl out of his backyard. I mean, and we've got not just the way my bushes have sunk in. I mean, it'll rain really heavy, and but it doesn't happen as it's raining. It'll rain super hard, and then you wait a couple minutes as everything basically comes down and fills it in, and then it's just like.
Yep. Now you're laughing back there. Are you here for Mr. Gallo?
I'm in no way connected.
All right.
I was just saying to Bill, that's the time of concentration. When your peak of your storm, you have a certain time after that.
And then it's
before
just like.
that peak of flow reaches you.
So I mean, it's obviously not just his backyard into my backyard. It's everybody's backyard ending up in his backyard, and then evacuating into mine,
and then overflowing
and
into his.
and into his.
I mean, certainly, I don't think we'll resolve this tonight. I mean, we can talk to town council and see what he advises. We can have a bond. I suspect that it may be with their private properties now. It may be difficult for us to do too much.
But eventually, we're going to end up owning all of that.
We'll own the road, not private
We'll own
property.
the road, we'll own any of these drains that are put in, the easements,
Well, the easement, I feel pretty strongly that we need to put drainage there. And quite honestly, it's easement to the town. If we own that road in that easement, and I have a drainage problem that's washing away my drainage infrastructure, I'm gonna put a drainage structure in to catch the water. So we can't take a chance of all that washing away. So I can't imagine that that's gonna get controlled any other way at this
Yeah.
point. But if a certain way I don't wanna do something the property owners don't want us to go in there, it's a catch-22, we have an easement, but it's technically not our easement yet. So right now it's Gallo's property, not the town's.
Can I respond?
Sure.
So, we were very aware of the easement as it was written, and I believe signed by both Jason and the Courtneys. We revised the easement with the deed, so there is no right to add to the system. The system can be repaired in general maintenance, but
Well, through the chair, then, if that were to be the case, then when it washes away, I'm going to replace it. So I think it makes more sense to add a drainage structure. But if by chance the easement doesn't allow us to do that, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna claim to say it can.
Right.
I may have to let town council look at it.
Yeah, let's put that with the
and
documentation.
these are the two other easement deeds.
Okay, yep.
Is there a way, Bill, we don't give them a permit for the last building lot, and we held the bond? To get them to put the drainage structure in, you think needs to be done in that?
They're willing to put it in. They're willing to put the drainage structure, but I
Yeah.
do want an engineered plan still. And I just asked for it Friday, so.
Okay, all right.
So, but at this point, again, if Kevin is saying his deed does not allow for that, we don't have an easement, it's not the town's. So right now, it's Gallo working on it, on private, dealing with the private property owner. So-
I understand, I think we should get as much out of him as possible, so we don't wind up spending the town's money trying to correct somebody else's problem.
How much is the bond?
250,000, I think.
400.
400?
400,000? So, how many of you have water in your basement?
None yet.
No water in your basements? That blows my mind.
Not yet. But
It
I've only
runs-
been living there about a year,
Yeah, if you haven't had it in the last year, you're not gonna
Yeah,
have it
yeah.
unless your foundation cracks.
Oh,
It's gonna crack.
there's a
We
lot
got
of cracks. There's a lot of
cracks.
cracks. Oh yeah.
That's what's
Every
happening
10
now.
feet concrete cracks. doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah. So my question is, I mean, I know the drain is not the be all end all solution for the problem we're having.
But it could mitigate.
But I got to tell you, from my side, and I know Kevin's not a fan of it, but being on the bottom side of everything, I don't know how to say. I'd rather have that than have what's happening now. Even if it's just something to put in right now, to take care of that, and then make sure that that's not it. We wipe our hands of it, and that's all done, because he's still gonna have all the water in his yard. It's still gonna all come down, and if the drain can or can't handle it when they have a 100-year storm, then it's still at that point, if the drain's not gonna handle it, it's still gonna all end up in my yard, in his yard. It needs to be a solution before it all reaches the graded low point by Gallo in his building. I mean, it's all gonna always end up right there.
Well, it has to be picked up along the way.
Yeah,
Picked up.
I mean, I have right where my arborvitaes are, I brought mulch, right out to the grass. Now there's so much rain, it's basically created a channel, and it runs right down that seam,
We can see that.
Yeah.
So like Bill said, we're not going to solve this here tonight. We do have a couple things we're going to look into. We'll talk to town council, see what it is, what they recommend, of course with Bill's input. And let's reconvene at the next hearing, or what do you think?
If I might, while we, of course, wait to get this project fixed and the water to take care of, while that's happening, it continues to rain. And as I continue to shovel out my drain, I'm going back out there the following weekend after a rainstorm and shoveling it out again.
Well, that's half the problem I have now, is
Yeah.
after the first storm we had, it washed dirt, silt, everything into all of the drainage that I put into that property, other than what Gallo put in, and it's basically no good anymore. You have how much dirt and silt can soak into these rocks to drain into a pipe, to drain out this way. It's not going to get past all that silt on top of the rocks. It's just going to wash over and wash away. So all the drainage and money I put in is now useless.
The drain that I did put in the back of my property along the base of that hill,
runs along the side of my property along Briarcliff and empties into the storm drain that's at the end of my driveway. And when you stand out there in a rainstorm and you look at it, it looks like chocolate milk pouring out of the drain.
Yeah. So,
Can I point out one other thing that
Sure.
may be of interest to you?
Sure.
So, just again, with this being where the major water accumulation was, right now this is a Gallo-owned property. What I learned about how they kind of tricked all of this is they would dig ditches that before there were houses, a ditch would just empty out to the street, and they would go down 3, 4 feet, 5 feet. And that was very effective. Right now, they're having problems on this property containing the water, and they've built this up over here, but
It's washed it out.
when they take that down, whatever problems we're having up here coming down, the same problem I think is going to be here coming down.
Yeah, I have pictures of it washing out part of my
and
neighbor's
Gallo
yard.
still owns that property? They haven't sold that one yet?
They're working on it.
They're
so.
working on it. Because, I mean, I have pictures of it washing out. They put up the barrier, and during the last storm, they went to the drains down at the end of his street.
They
where
put
his
sandbags in the front of my driveway.
around everything, to...
And literally in the front of my driveway. I had to go up Amherst and loop around them just to get out of my driveway. And I confronted them as they were doing it, and they said, "This is our street. This is our street. We can put sandbags wherever we want."
Wow.
And I told them to have Steve Gallo called me if that's where they'd like to place them, and they basically told me to go screw.
And he left for work, and they put
And
the
I
sandbags
moved
there
them out of the
anyway.
way, and then they came back and put them back.
So, well, it's been a travesty since forever.
Yeah, I know.
As long as I
Yeah.
can remember. And in 1968, they stopped the development there, and the people that owned it at that time said they weren't going to develop it because of the hill of water that lay behind Amherst and behind Regis. Okay, and they just weren't going to, it was never going to be developed, and then somehow someone bought it and it was still in effect, and then it just,
Yep, and then
it was
Ravine,
just,
and on and on.
you know, it's unconscionable that anybody could do it and grade like that.
I agree.
But I'm not quite sure, maybe we can get some kind of an answer from the town council.
Yeah, let
What the
us
resolve
do
might be.
some,
That would be very much appreciated.
you know.
Yeah, very much.
We're out of options because, as you might know, Steve Gallo doesn't exactly return the 3 of our phone calls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know how much more, I don't have enough money to keep throwing at this.
Agreed.
That's what they
You know.
depend on.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You may have to get the neighborhood together and get a class action.
Class
suit.
action suit.
You'll also notice Steve Gallo or a representative didn't join us this evening, of course, because what would they say, right?
They'll just wait for the grass to grow in.
That's what they told me, yeah.
Wow.
I looked at some of the dirt on the front lawns of that today up in there. That bylaw needs to change.
If-
4 to 6
I think
minimum.
If you look in front of my driveway
And
right
I
now,
think, like, what
it's
Bill
all
said,
mud.
Joe.
Right now, from the rainstorm, it all washes down.
From
And
their
the way they graded my driveway, it sort of goes like this at the bottom. So if you go look, there's probably 3 inches of mud and dirt, silt right at the bottom of my driveway that if it kept going, it would just go into the storm drain. But instead, it just collects, like I said, right at the foot of my driveway.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for your time.
And,
Thank you.
so, a couple of weeks.
May 14th, the next meeting.
May 14th, the next
Saw them.
meeting. Keep you
Okay.
posted. We have opportunity to, speak with Mr. Hennigan and town council and Controller Bill and.
Yep. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Thanks for this. Wow. Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Kevin.
Kevin,
Yeah, go.
We are we
I have
over?
pictures
No.
anyway. I have plenty of pictures. Yeah, we've got plenty.
Who's outside waiting?
Thank you.
Over. I don't know.
Which item is it?
Sean, nice to meet you.
Oh, we didn't skip over it, so there's nobody here.
Yeah, must have been outside while we were.
Oh, okay. What about the signature on 21 South Street?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a decision from.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to miss
I thought
that.
we were done.
You already say, oh yeah, okay.
All right, so this is the credit union?
Yeah, I just
Yes.
wanted, we sent a letter in asking that the board please consider a couple of changes we're proposing to be de minimis. And what the changes are is that, first of all, talking to the contractor, when they first sent things out for bid, they worried that they would be picking up groundwater where the drain line is deep. And so this, by the way, the plan that you see in front of you here is the approved version. And we're just proposing to make the infiltration structure actually, instead of what was shown here was 26 modules, make it actually 30, to make it bigger. As a conservative measure, because they were worried that we would pick up groundwater. And along the same lines, where there were 32 chambers shown here, we're actually, they wanted to make, we're proposing to make this 36. And again, the 26 modules here and the 32 here that were approved, that was all what was modeled in the drainage report, and that was taken care of even the 100-year storm. But we're just looking to make it even just a little bigger because we're worried that we're going to pick up groundwater. That's one change. The other is that we have a retaining wall here, which is 50 feet long, that we want to shorten to 24 feet, and a retaining wall here that we want to eliminate in favor of just a one-to-one riprap. And there, so that's the only, actually also a slight lengthening of where we showed guardrail.
So what's...
No changes whatsoever to the building, not the location, not the size, not the elevation, not the orientation.
Why the change the retaining walls to riprap?
Actually, because that's a little cheaper, and it's actually in part for making the infiltration bigger here and here.
But that is right across the street from the neighborhood that we're trying to, you know...
And I could show you, actually, one thing I was looking at while I was waiting, is that this wall was going to leave, this was the 30 scale plan, was going to leave about 15 feet worth of trees between what is altered and the curb. And the proposed plan with the one-to-one riprap slope is going to leave almost exactly that same, it's about 1 foot less. And you'll be the witness for being right there.
It's going to be a foot less of trees?
Yes. So it's the same, what's actually the buffer from the neighborhood is the trees that are remaining, because right off the curb here, this is the section where it rises right off the curb and where there are big trees.
Right.
And again, this is leaving about 15 feet, and this is the 20 scale one, right? Yes. And this, I don't know if anybody wants to say, this is leaving either 14 or 15 feet also. So it's functionally almost exactly the same as far as the buffer that is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that is because we proposed here actually a couple of feet between the base of the wall and the curb. We dropped that down to 1. You had the height, you had the thickness of the wall here, which was a 2-foot wall, and you have what was proposed behind it was going to be altered for putting in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so we brought this one-to-one slope closer to the curb, and you don't have the thickness of the wall,
Mhm.
and at the top of the slope, that's it. So we probably lost 1 foot of separation from curb to alteration.
Mhm.
So functionally, I don't think there's going to be any real difference for what is there, what can be kept as far as those big trees, which we want to keep in place,
Mhm.
because that's what's opposite.
That's what's going to provide the buffer for the
Especially
neighborhood.
from Preston over to here, that's where things are really nice and thick. In fact, I actually brought a couple pictures, but I don't know if anybody wants to see.
And what's the thinking behind shortening the other wall?
Just the same, again, the same deal, is just
Cheaper.
as an economic measure, it's a little cheaper. And that area actually is all clear anyway. There's not trees that are,
So aesthetically,
because this, I mean, I don't have a picture from there. This is what you see at,
No.
So,
Can't say by doing it, looks like.
yeah.
Through the chair, can I ask how much savings this is actually gonna be?
I don't, actually, the number was not transmitted to me, so I can't even, I tell you, I apologize, but it was basically looked at as kind of a trade-off, money-wise, was being extra conservative with the drainage, added a little extra cost, and we looked at what could be done that wouldn't change it, and we did look at, again, that thickness of.
So could you show again, please?
Sure.
Where the wall is proposed not to be and where the rip-wrap will take?
Sure, the wall is this hatched structure from between my two index figures. It's 220 feet long here, and that's, let's give you a reference point, that's almost DMH 7 to, it's not a good one
Can
here.
pick up where it is. So it's about 220 feet of wall that won't be there, and it'll be rip-wrap.
That is correct.
For about what depth, what height, what slope?
Well, it varies. At the worst point, you've got about 7 feet of height. You've got obviously less on toward the
Higher
end.
or lower than the street?
Oh no, this is all lower than the
All lower
street.
than the street.
And the way this runs actually is, for instance, right here, if you're in the street, you're just below elevation 510. You go up the curb, you're at elevation 510. Then right there, my fingernail is 512. Right there is 514. And actually, I don't know how well this shows, but I brought some pictures from the Google Street Maps. This is a car sitting right at the end of Preston. If you're right at the end of Preston, if you look to one side, the trees are, they're getting a little, they're a little more sparse back here. But from opposite about the middle of Preston running, it's basically southward, that's where you've got your best tree cover on site.
And those aren't going away.
No, and the depth from what would be altered here to curb is what was proposed and what was approved is really the same within about a foot of what's proposed with the riprap. So.
Do you have a question?
Through you, Mrs. Chairman.
Yes.
The wall will only be seen, it'll be seen from the Southbridge Street side.
So, exactly.
And the
wall-
parking, interior parking lot, but
Correct.
the wall is gonna will have growth take place in it, but weeds and stuff. But the riprap will have a lot more growth and weeds and
Sure.
junk growing in it. I mean, I think we were pretty gracious and whatever when we did this whole site and everything like that. I would like to see the wall remain and not be replaced by riprap. I'm only one person.
Steve?
I understand that sentiment.
I'd like it to remain as was approved.
Nick?
I tend to agree.
Scott?
Contrarian here, I don't think it changes too much in terms of shielding it from the neighbors. I'm fine with it.
John?
What size riprap?
It's 100 pound, which is basically a foot by 8 inches is 100 pounds, 150 pounds per cubic foot. So again, foot by 8.
And is the guardrail gonna remain?
Yes, in fact, we actually proposed extending the guardrail. If you compare on the plans, what we just sent in, dated April 10 versus that one, we extended it because I was just looking at it where we had it end over opposite Preston, and it just looked to me like we probably should have had to go a little further at that time anyway. So we did extend it on the April 10 plans.
Did your landscape architect or engineer approve the riprap, that it's gonna hold that banking for the stamp?
Well, I'm the engineer.
Okay.
And it will hold the riprap. One-to-one with, especially with good-sized pieces, not just people dumping little,
Are you gonna stamp the redesigned drawing?
I did.
Oh, I can't see from here.
Oh, sorry. Well, we sent in April 10 dated plans as part of the submission with the letter asking that these changes be considered de minimis.
She submitted this on 410?
No, we submitted it last What date was it, Adam?
Oh, it's Thursday.
Thursday.
Because you have your list as your change, your last change is 410.
The letter was April 18th.
Okay.
I
don't
was
have a problem with
actually
the
just,
riprap.
sorry, I was just coming back from delivering it when Adam actually sent a message saying, you know, you gotta be in by noon today or you can't be on the agenda.
I don't have a problem with the riprap as long as it's maintained. Because it looks like, you know, it'll look real nice when you get the weeds growing through. But if you maintain it, it's gonna look nice. Now, what are you gonna bed the riprap in?
We actually, I think in the detail, we show a foot of gravel and a Marafi gravel. And a Marafi 140N paper. Fabric, excuse me, yeah. Yes. 100 pound riprap, Marafi 140N over 12 inches of gravel.
Right.
I don't have a problem with it.
We need a motion too, or can we all do it in one? I mean, we increase the size of the, what do we, catch bait? That's not
The infiltration structure.
Infiltration structure, thank you.
The ones, again, here and here.
So it's up to the board, but the town engineer hasn't had a chance to review this yet for the catch basin. I don't know if we want to consider their input before we make a decision.
Any thoughts, Bill?
Well, just in general, the increase in the infiltration system, obviously, no issues with that. I think it's conservative to add to that. The only comment I have, I don't have a preference one way or the other with riprap versus retaining wall. Is that a stone masonry wall or was it concrete?
It was going to be Canigliaro block.
Okay, block wall.
2-foot block, yeah.
My only concern would be, I know that the neighbors were very vocal in this area, very concerned about the trees. So that's the only thing that, you know, I'm going back and forth on. But whether or not it's a retaining wall or riprap, I think they're both structurally will be fine. But it's just...
As long as the trees are maintained.
As long as the impact is no different than what it was going to be, I think that's the critical part of it. Because that's where the
And through the chair, just, again, just as far as the aesthetics, this is a face which looks this way.
That way.
It can't even be seen from Elmwood or Preston.
Yep.
Through the chair, one more question. How far into the drip line are you gonna cut to put your riprap in, of the trees?
The riprap slope is gonna end at the top of the slope. They're not gonna go any further than they have to, because again, the message was very clear from the meetings
Right,
with
that
the
doesn't
neighbors.
answer my question. My
Okay.
question was, how far into the drip line of the tree is the slope of the riprap gonna be?
I guess I'm not sure what you're at, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question.
Drip line of the tree is the outside
Yeah,
foliage?
it's the crown, yeah.
That's the edge of your drip line. How far beyond that are you gonna go in, beyond that, or are you gonna be outside that?
There's some trees, right now, there are trees from the curb to probably just about the Route 12 right of way.
Yeah, but those are gonna be coming out, so.
Well, some
Your
of them,
parking lot,
but
yeah.
where-
I'm talking about along the roadway.
Yeah,
Your riprap's going 220 feet from left to right, correct?
from here to here.
Correct.
In that
And
location.
you have trees in that area, that 220 feet, correct?
Correct.
We don't have we gotta get some dry erase markers. So, when you take the drip line of the tree, which is the extent of your outside foliage, when it rains, it comes down, and that's what feeds the roots.
Yep.
So I wanna know if you're gonna be in underneath the branches to start that riprap slope, or you're gonna be outside that outside limit of the branches?
We're definitely going to be in underneath some branches because, for instance...
Are you gonna be closer than 3 feet to the stump?
Which tree? I mean, there are
Any
trees...
tree?
Some yes, some no. There's probably a tree right here where I'm touching that we're not going to be within the drip line. There's probably a tree right where, just above where this wall is proposed, that we would be in the drip line.
My concern is, I mean, if it's a tree this big and you're inside the drip line, I really don't care, it's gonna survive. You get a big tree and you take half the root system for the riprap, I'm wondering if you're gonna hit the taproot. Taproot doesn't always go straight down.
Sure, I understand your
Will
point.
the tree survive?
But again, as was noting, the distance that there was going to be no alteration under the approved plan
Yep.
is basically the same as with the riprap.
Is the back, that's a good point, is the back of the existing or proposed retaining wall
Yeah.
the same point as the top of the riprap.
It is almost, it's within about a foot, because
So you go on a further foot into the
Because-
tree to get
be-
the riprap.
Because we left more space off the curb before the wall, and then you have the thickness of the wall, and then you were gonna alter beyond the back face of the wall. It wasn't gonna be a perfect, excavation. So when you got all of this done, you were gonna be about 6 feet or so in, and if you have a 6-foot rise with the 1-to-1 riprap slope, you've got that same 6 feet in. So the alteration, what trees are gonna be endangered by this as opposed to the wall, I think it's hard to say that it's going to be any significantly different.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the drainage modifications on each end. You got one up near the building, and you got one down the other end, we're right. But that we keep the original wall versus the riprap.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
your presentation, appreciate it. Is that a meeting?
Yes.
No business unforeseen.
No business unforeseen by the chair. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.